welcome back to another video. I apologize in advance because my camera might be turned weird. Totally a blindness thing. I apologize. And I also apologize because Beacon is digging. So hold on one second. Hey. Stop. Sorry about that. She was digging. So it's December here and she has allergies, so she's been like digging like crazy. But anyway, I thought I'd make a video because it's been like 2 months since I made my last video. And I want to kind of go over some things. I've been in my fieldwork rotation for, 7 weeks, and this coming Monday, so it's Saturday right now, this coming Monday will be my last week of my rotation. And so as an OTA student, you're required to do 2 8-week fieldwork rotations in the fall of your graduating semester. So I'll be graduating in like 7 days, and it's crazy. But yeah, so I have had some issues with accessibility with my site. I can go into that later though, because it's gonna be a long video. But yeah, so I thought I would kind of explain some things that I am doing as a blind OTA student right now, what I'm struggling with, what I've found, and what I've kind of used to help me along, because just in case, now or later, I have someone that watches this who's blind, who wants to be an OTA, like, there you go. And if you're new to my channel / new to this video, I am totally blind, and, well, I take it back, I can see light, but it varies, so, like, sometimes I can see it, most of the time I can't, and sometimes my brain just thinks I see light, and there's actually no light, so, technically I don't see light. So I'm totally blind, and I'm an OTA student, occupational therapy assistant student, and I'm working in an orthopedic setting right now for my field work, a little bit of neuro too, as well as a hospital setting and a skilled nursing facility, and just like an outpatient clinic. So I'm doing all those things. And my rotation before this was another outpatient clinic, and then my rotation before that was a wheelchair seating specialty clinic. So, yeah, that's where I've been for the last 2 months. Can't say where I am, but I'm at home, so I didn't get to travel. But a long story that I can't go into yet, because that kind of leads into the whole thing of my frustration with my placement people, and that's a whole other video that I won't get into yet, because there's some legal things into that, so I don't want to go into that. But anyway, so I thought I would kind of explain my triumphs and troubles of my fieldwork so far. So the big thing is access as far as documentation systems. My one clinic used WebPT, which is a documentation system from the computer, and it's, if I had to rank it, I would say probably like 80% accessible, so, from a student standpoint, so I can write notes in it decently well. The only problem was that there's combo boxes where you have to go and select, excuse me, the ICD codes and the treatment modalities, which you could also type those in a text box. Those were not accessible. They were labeled incorrectly, and I gotta choose my battles, and I just didn't want to fight it, so I just let it go. If I would have been employed at this specific place, I would have said, hey guys, let's talk to the company, let's fix this, but honestly, I didn't feel the urge to argue with them about making it accessible, so I just kind of let it go. But if you ever use WebPT as a suggestion, you might want to argue and explain why it's not accessible and fix it, because I use JAWS, which is a screen reader, and it doesn't work too well. But yeah, so then my other one uses a website / app thing called Citrix, and it's pretty widely used apparently. Long story short, a technical support guy told me that it worked with JAWS, and Apparently there was some security thing or something. It was weird, but basically, long story short, I've been 8 weeks at this place and have no access to anything. And I'm a little bit angry because they told me they would fix it. They never did. They're looking into it. No response from anybody. So I'm a little bit frustrated because they told me they'd fix it. They never did. So I've been using my Braille note, which is just a Braille device, refreshable Braille display. And I've been typing notes on there and emailing them to my fieldwork educator. And of course, unfortunately, I can't say anything about patient names or anything in my notes, which really is terrible because when I want to go back to see who's who, I can't because HIPAA. Because it's on my personal device, which is probably illegal, but here we are. So I write them on my Braille note and I email them to my fieldwork educator, and she pastes them into the appropriate note. That's been okay, I guess. It's not the most convenient because when I want to go back and read stuff, I can't because I don't know who's who. I can't reveal any patient information, so I just basically have to say, we did this, this, and this during the treatment. That was it. And I can't say, patient was a 75-year-old whoever. I can't do any of that stuff because HIPAA. So, and so then when I want to know what happens, like when I go back to see what we did in the last treatment session, I can't review those on my own, so I have to have someone read them to me. And it's fine, but I just don't do well with processing information auditorily. So if you're coming into this as a blind student, I really encourage you to work on that. We would assume that everything's accessible, depending on where you live and if you're in a big city, but, can always depend on that. But also be able to stand up for yourself, too, because people are just going to say, it's easier to do it this way, so deal with it, and that's what they did to me. My place basically said that they're not too concerned about it because they know I can't legally do anything about it, so they don't really care. And they're right. I mean, I can't because I'm a student, and if they say they're working on it, like there's no way for me to go prove if they're actually working on it or not. So legally, I can't do anything, and I'm not employed there, so I don't really have a strong case. But again, it was one of those things I didn't want to. I cared about it. It made me mad, but I had to choose my battles. So anyway, so then, so documentation is definitely an issue. If you are comfortable using your screen readers or, like a computer, you should be good, as long as it is accessible, excuse me. And then another thing too, like, I struggle with finding patients, so I'm a very soft-spoken person, as some of you probably know from my videos. I don't speak loudly, and so I've had to learn to speak up and scream, and I hate doing that because, people always tend to yell at me just because I'm blind, and that bothers me. And so when I go into a patient's room, I don't want to be like, hey Cheryl, how you doing? So I have to be like loud, and it's weird. But anyway, that's just a me thing. It's not a blindness thing. But something that is blindness thing is whenever people don't speak to you and you don't know that they're there, it's really awkward. So like, for example, we have like this giant therapy gym in one of my facilities, and a lot of the tables and everything has wheels on them. So the tables get to move. Like, they can move a couple inches, back and forth, and it's frustrating to me because when I set a patient down at a table and I say, okay, we're gonna go do such and such. So we go over to a different area to work on exercises or something. And we come back to the table, and the table moved, and I'm like, crap, where'd the table go? And it's literally like 5 inches from where it was before. Or, like if I walk away and come back to a patient and the table moved, I'm like, crap, where's my patient? And a lot of them don't, they won't respond. So, like, I'm like looking for them and trying to like reach out, but be casual about it. And they just kind of, they're like, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, oh, there you are, So just kind of embrace it. Like, it's awkward because you're reaching out, and that's that's kind of the part where I feel more blind, when I'm reaching out for someone and someone's not even there, or I'm talking to someone and they're not there. That's always awkward. So just embrace it, because there's not much you can do about it. And definitely be confident in yourself and your own abilities, because that's a big thing too. I really tend to, I don't have confidence in myself and my abilities, and so that kind of translates into me not, people not really trusting me. So, you have to kind of pretend like you know what you're doing, even if you don't. And, like, for me, one of the biggest things was pushing wheelchairs. Like, I don't like to push wheelchairs. Safety thing, because I'm blind, so I could run you into something and hurt you. So we worked on that. Excuse me, worked on that, and we just kind of worked out a system. Like, I was like, hey, like, I've never done this before, and my fieldwork instructor was like, don't ever say you've never done it before. Like, just go in there and say, hey, I'm gonna do this, So yeah, so if you have to push wheelchairs, good luck to you. And hopefully sometime I can demonstrate that to you guys. But anyway, yeah, so as far as getting your practical skills in, I'm in an orthopedic setting, so basically we do a lot of stretches, we do a lot of, like, rotator cuff tears, carpal tunnel, like, various muscle and bone injuries. So a lot of it is exercise, and a lot of the stuff is very visual. They have, like, these printouts that tell you what to do and all this stuff. Which, by the way, that's not accessible either. So if you can find a accessible exercise resource, let me know, because that's great. Because a lot of them have pictures, and they say, like, put your hand like this, and I'm like what? What are we doing? So yeah, so I don't use printouts of exercises. I kind of educate the patient on what to do. I demonstrate, and I've had them demonstrated to me by touching someone else do them, and them doing them to me. And so then, like, I show them to patients. I either show them by physically, like, moving their hands, or I show them and then I kind of feel their hands to make sure they're doing it right. That's another thing too. I'm not comfortable touching people very much, so I've had to get used to that and kind of force myself to touch people, even if it's awkward. So definitely embrace the awkward, because it's a different setting, and it will be awkward, trust me, because, like, I had to touch someone had a catheter, and they had, like, the bag that was hanging down, and I was helping someone get dressed, which that's a skill. You have to just definitely embrace it, because you're going to touch something that you don't want to touch, and you'll be like, okay, that was awkward, let's move on. But yeah, so I was helping this person get dressed, and I touched the bag, and I was like, oh, because, like, I knew intellectually what a catheter was. I never felt one before. And the bag that it goes, like, it's like a tube that goes down into a bag. And so I was like, okay, well, this is a catheter bag, hello. So, I just had to be casual about it and just kind of embrace it. And as far as, like, the machines, so I have my talking blood pressure cuff, talking thermometer, my goniometers that are notched. So basically we took an X-Acto knife and just kind of cut little notches in them. My pulse ox that talks, and a tactile tape measure, kind of. It's like a ruler, but it clicks, and it's called a click rule, kind of. Actually, it's called the tactile caliper. It's from National Braille Press, but it's similar to a tape measure, except it doesn't bend. And as far as, like, the weights and stuff, like, we have, like, hand weights. Those are pretty easy because they're all, let me rephrase, they're easy if they're put in the appropriate place. So everything's kind of stacked up, like, the 1 pounds are on top, the 2 pounds are next to it, 3 pounds are below that. So if everything's put back correctly, then it's fine. But if they're not, then it kind of sucks, because then you're like, crap, what is this? As far as teaching someone how to walk with a cane, how to use a wheelchair, which some of that's physical therapy, But we're gonna have to know if they're doing it correctly. Most of that you get from practice. Like, I literally just sat down in a wheelchair and said, okay, let me figure this out. I took a cane and I was like, okay, self, let's try to walk with a cane. This is just a walking cane, like a single point cane. And I used my regular, my white cane for blindness and my, well, borrowed 1-point cane. And I figured out how to walk with it, and it is possible. So if I had to teach someone how to walk with a cane who's blind, using a support cane and a white cane, it is possible. But, I mean, basically the only way to get it is to practice. Like, even with crutches, you have to practice, you have to kind of know the movements so you can teach someone else. Because if you're totally blind like me, like, you don't understand, well, if you're born blind, you don't understand concepts like, well, for example, people swing their arms when they walk, and that's just weird to me because I've never done that, so, you know, it's an unusual concept. But yeah, so definitely feel free to touch people all the time. And if people don't like being touched, just be like, hey, like, explain to them, be like, hey, like, I'm sorry, but I don't know what's happening unless they touch you, so, you know. As far as people falling, like, I always touch them, like, if they're standing and they have history of falls, I'm always touching them. They're always wearing a gait belt, and one hand is either always on them, especially if they're walking, but if they're standing and they're fairly supported, I just kind of rest my hand on them, so that way I can catch them if I need to real quick, but, you know, I don't need to be, like, full on, you know, standing directly behind them, gonna catch them, because if they're supported, they're not gonna fall, hopefully. But if they do, you know, I can quickly catch them. So yeah, sorry, this video just morphed into a whole, my skills as a blind OTA, so, sorry. Yeah, so, that was another thing, too, with my blindness. I know blindness is a part of who I am. I don't try to hide it, but I don't try to be like, I'm a blind person, you know. So I go in and I'm like, hey, I'm blind, so I'm gonna have to touch you, is that okay? And if they don't understand what that means, I'm like, hey, like, I'm totally blind, I can't see anything that you're doing. So, you know, I'm gonna touch you, I'm gonna just kind of feel what you're doing, and if it's not okay, just let me know. And I give them the option, I'm like, hey, like, if you're not comfortable, we can find a sighted person. Most of them are pretty chill, you know, they don't care. As long as they're getting therapy, they have no care in the world. So yeah, so, you know, I just go in casually and just, it's part of me, that's who I am. And I'll make another video about having a dog in the therapy setting. It's definitely different, but I'll go into that later. So, right now we're just assuming I have a cane, which I don't. I don't carry my cane that much, but if you don't use a guide dog or service dog in therapy and you're blind, you know, I can try to help you, because I can get by without a dog. Would definitely be a lot harder as far as, like, getting around and stuff, but it is possible. That's another thing too, I have to deal with people assuming I can't do things. So a lot of times, like, in the therapy world, everything's colored. So, like, Theraputty is color-coded, which that can easily be labeled on the containers with Braille, or they have this, like, tactile, raised tactile marking you can get on stuff, and I think it has, like, letters and numbers and stuff. You can use that to label the containers. You can use that to label the weights and stuff. They even have these, like, stretchy bands, they're called TheraBands, and they are color-coded. Excuse me, which means, like black is, like, a super strong resistance, and, like, green is not very strong. So if you learn the system and learn the way it's laid out, it's not that hard. As far as using apps in therapy, I use Seeing AI, Be My Eyes, Be Specular, and IRA, which is AIRA, which is also pronounced ERA according to VoiceOver. So these are, okay, well, Seeing AI and, well, that's it. Seeing AI is a virtual assistant. Basically, it's an artificial intelligent app on your phone that you use, and it tells you like what the camera sees. You can do color. I don't know how accurate the color is though, because it could be wrong. I don't know. Handwriting, text, facial recognition, which, I mean, as long as it takes you to take a picture, like someone could just say, hey, I'm so-and-so, you know. It does objects, currency, if you take a picture, like if you take a screenshot of a post that someone made on Facebook and you want to read it, you can do that with that. So I use that somewhat sometimes, like especially with color, or if someone writes me if they print out a print document, that I don't have my scanner, I can just take a picture of it and it reads it. I can also use KNFB Reader for that. The NFB Newsline, which is like a National Federation of the Blind, they made a newspaper and magazine subscription service kind of thing, where if you're blind, you can get access to it, and you can either do it with a phone, or the internet, or on your iPhone or tablet. And in their new release, they built in this thing called KNFB Reader Basic, which is basically what allows you to take a picture of text and it reads it to you. And I have the full version as well, and that works with, basically it allows you to like save the file, you can edit it and everything else. But I use that as well for reading documents. Now Be Specular, Be My Eyes, and Ira are 3 human-supported intellectual apps. So basically, you can get remote assistance if you need it. So a lot of people use it for like if they're lost in the mall, or if they're lost in the parking lot, like which I was the other day. Just, you know, when you need that pair of eyes to help you, and you're like, don't want to call your friends at midnight or whatever. So Ira is paid, but they do have this thing where you can get 5-minute calls for free. It's great. And I use that a lot with my healthcare stuff because it's confidential, whereas Be My Eyes and Be Specular are volunteer-based, which is fine. But, you know, in the healthcare setting, I gotta be careful with HIPAA and everything else. And, you know, I've got to talk to my future employer about that, like if I'm allowed to use it, how it would work, because I always try to make sure there's no patients when I do the camera, because basically there's a sighted person, who is basically seeing what you would see through your iPhone camera. So you show your camera, whatever it is you're showing it, and they can see it. So I use it a lot with machines, like we have the grip, like the dynamometer and the like pinch gauge and stuff like that, and it measures your pinch and your grip strength, and it has a little arrow and a little dial, and it kind of reads like it's a number. And it's print, so I can't read the number, so I always call Ira, and I'm like, hey, like, can you read this number? And they have no idea what I'm talking about, and so I have to explain, like, there's like a black arrow, I think, that points to this one, and can you read what that number is? And sometimes I'll just ask patients, but depending on the patient, you know, you have to have the other person, so I always ask someone else to read it to me, because, you know, it's not always convenient to have to ask another therapist or another healthcare worker, hey, what's this number, you know. Ira does take a few minutes to load and everything, but it's better than relying on another person who, maybe they're busy, you know. Whenever Ira, like, it's a paid service, so you're paying them to do that, so I don't feel quite as bad whenever I need help with that kind of stuff. And as far as, like, Be My Eyes and Be Specular, Be Specular is like, you take a picture of something, and it's through text or recorded audio, so I can ask a question, they can either respond back either by texting or audio recording, and it goes out to a lot of different people. So I can use that with, like, you want to make sure something's the right color, or, like, I couldn't do it with patient notes, obviously, because that's, like, HIPAA. But if I had something, you know, I wanted to be able to read, I could say, hey, what is this? What do you see? Yeah, so, and then Be My Eyes is like imagine like a FaceTime call, but it's with people from all over the world. You type in your time zone and your state, country, I guess it doesn't have to be state, so wherever you live. And it matches people to your time zone and your language. So if I need help at 3 a.m. my time, they're going to connect me to someone who speaks English, and it could be like, I don't know, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, wherever they're from. So, they do that. It's really nice, because if you need help randomly, you can say, hey, call this app up, and it can help you. Excuse me. So, I use it a lot. I use my phone a lot for timers. I wish they made an app that you could set a timer for every like 10 minutes that would go off, because I've tried using VO stopwatch and it's just not loud enough for me. I need something that I can hands-free set the timer, and I don't want to buy an Apple Watch because that's expensive. But yeah, because like we do a lot of tissue work and stuff, which I'll kind of explain later, but basically it's kind of massage, except it's a therapeutic term. And I really need that timer because my hands are covered in lotion and I don't want to reach out and touch my phone because, ew, I have a tactile, I don't like lotion, or creams of any kind, so we have to use it for therapy, and I use rubber gloves because I'm like, I'm not touching that. Oh, sorry, hold on. What did I do? Let's pause for a second.
Speech on. Getting my phone. Getting my phone. Stop recording video. Button.
Okay.
Speech off.
Try and make sure we're still recording. My finger kind of touched the button. But yeah, so what was I? Oh yeah, I don't like lotion or cream, so I have to use like gloves, which is fine because we're in the red zone, which means we have high cases of COVID right now. So I just kind of don't want to touch my phone because, ew, lotion. But yeah, so, I mean, that's pretty much what I use for my accommodation so far. As far as, like, job hunting, I really want to work in a rehab setting. That's, like, my long-term hope and prayer. Well, actually, my long-term hope and prayer is that I would like to travel with another therapist, because I can't travel as an OTA, and work in very rural areas, and like teach people how to do things like a rehab teacher, except therapy. Because in rural areas there's not a lot of help and resources, and I kind of want to be that person that's like, hey, I'll help you, but that's like my like ultimate dream job. So if any of you ever hear anything about that, like, let me know, because I would be all for it. But my dream job before that would be to work in a rehab hospital, preferably a standalone rehab. So like, you come there and you stay for fill in the blank weeks or fill in the blank months, and we work on teaching you how to live with your disability. I just like independent living skills a lot. I think that's partially just from just growing up blind and having to figure out how to adapt things, because I grew up in a rural area, so my parents were just like, we don't really know, so good luck, kind of thing. And they helped me, but it's a rural area. They didn't have resources a lot. So when I got to college, it was like, crap, how do I do this? So I kind of want to I want to work in that area and teach people, that way they don't end up like me and go to college and be like, crap, how do I do laundry? Like, I've never labeled laundry before, So I want to, excuse me, I'm sorry, allergies. I want to work in that field. I just, no offense to orthopedic, but it's very repetitive, which I know rehab will be as well. But I've had enough orthopedics. It's a lot of hands-on, and I have Raynaud's, and I also maybe have arthritis. We're not really sure. We're still kind of waiting around in my hands. So on days when it's really cold, like, it hurts. My hands are like, no, because you have to do a lot of physical, like fine motor tasks with people, and pinching, and it hurts a lot. So I just don't know. I just can't do it every day. So I'm gonna work in rehab because it's different every day, different people, well, I mean, same people, you get to know the people too. I like that. I like how you get to know individuals as people, and they're not just patients, you're not there to make money. Like, you get to have a relationship. Yeah, so sorry, that was like a long rant. Now, as far as walking with someone, again, I'll go over this in more detail with my dog video, but basically, I kind of just, if they're in a wheelchair, and they're aware enough to be able to wheel themselves independently, I kind of just touch the back of the wheelchair and kind of walk along behind them. Transfers, you know, I use the gait belt and do everything, because it's really not sight dependent. You can be blind or visually impaired, whatever you prefer, and still transfer someone. It's all physical. And you know, if you're physically impaired with whatever disability you have, there's ways around it too. You can figure out a way to transfer somebody, depending on what disability you have. So yeah, so you know, like demonstration, like modeling, those help a lot with me with figuring out what I need to do, how I need to do things. Especially with the Hoyer lift, that helped a lot, because I had no idea how to use one, and my friend was like, we're gonna go over here to so-and-so's house, and I got to go in the Hoyer lift, and I got to use it, so that helped a lot. Yeah, another thing too is be prepared for people to ask you to prove yourself. You know, because there's not a lot of blind people in healthcare right now, and it really sucks because I need people. But if you watch this in like 10 years, there might be, who knows how many blind people in healthcare. So, you know, be prepared to answer tough questions. Like, literally, people are like, why are you in this field? And I'm like, hello, I just met you. Why are you asking me that? Or just like random things, like, how are you able to transfer someone without being sighted? And I'm like, well, I'm gonna show you because I'm gonna do it. So that's where the confidence comes into, because if you don't feel confident in yourself, people aren't gonna believe you that you can actually do it, and they're not even gonna give you the chance to try it. So that's a big thing. And then I feel like there was something else that I'm forgetting. Oh, as far as like walking around the hospital or wherever you end up, for me, a lot of my places are terrible with accessibility. Like, one of the places that I'm at, they don't have Braille in, most of their, well, I'd say most of the rooms are Braille, but it's terrible. Like, the Braille's, like, smudged down into nothingness, because, you know, everybody's like, oh, cool, Braille, let's rub our hands on it, and so it gets kind of smushed, and nobody can read it. And so I'm not gonna say where I am, because, like, you know, HIPAA and everything else, but I called this person who's in charge of, like, the resources department or whatever, and I said, hey, you guys need to fix your Braille, because I can't read it, and I'm blind, and I need this Braille, because I have to go into each patient's room and find them and everything. And they were like, okay. Well, then, like, 2 days later, they walk around, and they're like, we never saw anything, and I was like, no, it's Braille, you can't, I mean, you can see it, but if you're sighted, you never know what Braille is, you're not gonna understand that it's messed up. So, like, for example, like, it would be room 410, and it would say 3, the dot 1 for number 1 would be gone, and the 0 would only be, like, dots, oh goodness, 2, 5, and the dot 4 would be gone. So, basically, it said, oh, and the 4 was actually 3, so the dot 5 on the 4 was messed up, which none of you sighted people will get it unless you know Braille. So it said 3 space, like a blank, and then it said like a CON sign or hyphen. So, you know, it's kind of weird. Anyway, so they said, well, it looked fine, and I was like, well, it's not, so fix it. And they were like, well, can't you just pop it back up? And I was like, what? And they were like, yeah, it's like bubbles, you just pop it back up, right? And I was like, no, that's not how it works. So I kind of explained to them, like, here's Braille, here's how it works. It's not something you just pop back up because it was room signs, so it's like a metal, hard, I don't even know how it disappeared, it's a mystery, but it's really hard plastic, so you can't just smush it down like you could on paper. So it's very weird how that happened, but it did. And they said they were going to fix it. That was like 7.5 weeks ago. So here we are. But there again, they said, you're not employed here, so we don't have to. And I was just like, walk away, just walk away, because I don't have time to deal with that right now. But if you do end up dealing with that, I strongly encourage you to argue and fight and stand up for yourself, because they will take every advantage to not have to do anything for you. A lot of my people keep saying, well, they just don't understand. And I'm like, you understand plenty. Like, I've explained it to you 6 different times, 6 different ways. I've showed you, demonstrated everything. You just don't want to. That's all it boils down to. People don't want to do it because it costs money, or they don't have to, so why do it, basically. Which is crappy, but that's how the world is. Sadly. So, yeah. Wow, sorry, that just, like, got off topic. Trying to think of another thing. I definitely struggle with learning the machines. So, like, we have this machine, it does ultrasound, it does the, kind of like, the TENS unit, which is basically for pain, and the NMES unit, neuromuscular, electrical stimulation. It's all in one, like, giant, rolly, wheeled machine. And it has a bunch of buttons, and a bunch of beeping menus, and, excuse me, there's no way to make it accessible, apparently, according to whoever made it, which there probably is, but, there again, they don't have to, so why? So, I haven't had to use it on my own yet, because I'm a student, and so, if I did have to use it, I would say, hey, sighted person, come over here and help me, because something like that with an app on a phone is not the smartest idea, just because it's someone's life, so, you're using electrical therapy, like, you don't want to screw that up, so, I always ask for help. Be prepared to ask for help too, but just do it in, like, a chill way, just be like, hey, I need this, because I can't do it. But yeah, so, that's basically my struggles and joys of being an OTA student right now as a blind person. Another thing too, try to find as many people as you can who are in the system of OT or disability groups. I use Facebook a lot with that. Unfortunately, sadly, I have only found one totally blind OT who is in Ireland, and I tried to make contact with him, but apparently, they're in different countries, so it doesn't really work too well. But it's kind of upsetting because a lot of people that I've connected with, I get really excited. And nothing against them at all, they're cool. It's just, like, 3 or 4 people that I've found that are visually impaired, they don't prefer blindness. They have some degree of vision. They can see either colors or read print that's magnified or enlarged, or they have visual deficits, like, for sure, but they just they're not fully blind, and I'm struggling with that a lot because, I need a mentor. Like, that would be awesome if I had someone who's totally blind who could help me, because I do have totally blind mentors, but they're not in OT, so they can't really help me with this kind of stuff. And, nothing against them that are visually impaired. It's just, it would be nice to have someone who's actually blind all the way, who gets it, because, like, like, you know, we've been talking and everything, and they're like, hey, I need help with fill in the blank, and I'm like, well, here's how I did it, but it's not gonna work for you because you can see. So like, someone used chalk to outline for orthotics, like when you make splints, you have to draw the pattern on the splint material. So they used chalk to kind of make the lines, and I said, okay, that's cool. Like, in my head, I'm like, that doesn't work for me because I'm blind, can't see the chalk. But it worked for them, which is cool. Like, I'm not discouraging them at all for doing this as a visually impaired person. It's just like, you know, I just feel like a lot of times when I post in groups and in social media, I'm always like, I don't want to offend people by saying, hey, I don't want to talk to you because you're not blind. But it's just, I just want to have the actual totally blind person respond to me. Because, you know, that's the problem too with blindness. There's so many different degrees. Like, you could be blind and still see everything around you. Whereas I was born totally blind, so I don't understand space. That's a big thing too. I sometimes get too close to people. And again, that's where the embracing the awkward comes in. Color, I don't have any concept of color. I don't have any concept of tracking or visual, like, patterns, like when they read stuff, like scanning, stuff like that. So I'm kind of worried about educating people in that kind of stuff because I understand it cognitively, but I can't comprehend it, so I struggle with that a lot, especially if I go into, like, low vision rehab, which would be ironic. I just wouldn't feel comfortable teaching someone how to scan or how to read properly because I can't see them read, so I don't know how you guys read sighted people. I do on an intellectual level, but comprehending it's just not possible. So, you know, if I want to teach someone colors, like, I can teach them as best as I can, but I'm not going to understand it. So, you know, it'd be nice to talk to someone who's actually totally blind, who gets it, who's in the healthcare field, because, you know, I can talk to people all day long who have different degrees of blindness, and they'll be like, oh, yeah, well, I can see colors, so I don't know how you get around that. And I'm like, okay. Like, I just have to be like, okay, just, I have to understand that they're not living my experience, so I can't be upset by that, but it does bother me. So yeah, so hopefully if you're blind and you're looking into this field, I strongly encourage you to do so, because, I've been here, so I can help you, hopefully. Especially if you're totally blind, like, I'm all for it. Like, if you figure out a way to contact me, like, go you, because, like, I would be so happy to mentor someone who's totally blind who's going into this field, because there's a lot of things that people don't think about, and honestly, it really bothers me, because we're an OT, and people just don't get the basic things. That will shock you, too. Rehab settings, or orthopedic settings, or healthcare, they want to treat you more as a patient and not as a therapist or practitioner. So they'll say, hi, I'm Cheryl, and I'm like, okay, hello, and that's not even a patient, that's just a healthcare worker. By the way, there's no one named Cheryl, so that I was just making that name up, but, you know, stuff like that, like, you have to just kind of brush it off and deal with it, even though it does kind of make me angry sometimes, because there's not a lot of healthcare workers that are blind in the healthcare field, so the general healthcare field doesn't have a lot of practice in it, so, you know, for example, there was a patient who needed, totally making this, I mean, I'm not making it up, but it happened, but it's going to be changing details, so it's not HIPAA, but there was a patient who had some type of medication, and they had low vision, or as the doctors said, visual impairment / blindness, which I was like, okay, whatever. And they had a medication, and they said that this person couldn't be home alone, when it was time to take the medication because they didn't know the difference between the different bottles. And I was like, they can label it. Like, all you gotta do is label it in a tactile format so to where they understand this is this bottle, I take this many times, blah, blah, blah. And my educator beside me, my physical educator, she was like, I never thought of that. And I was like, how are you an OT? How did you make it past, like, college? And it really, I was so frustrated, and I was like, calm down, because these people are going out into the world and they don't know anything about blindness. They only teach low vision, they teach writing, they teach magnification, and they make it seem like Braille and blindness skills are compensations, which in the medical field they are, but they're alternative, they're a way to live life. And a lot of people just, in the health field, they think that blindness is a curse, it's a tragedy, and yeah, technically I guess it could be, but it's life, deal with it, kind of thing. And they don't see, I guess they don't see blindness as a positive thing, which is what it is. They kind of see it as somebody else's problem, and that just really, really irks me, because I'm like, guys, it's not that hard, just label stuff, and, you know, blindness isn't terrible, like, you can live with it. You know, and that's another thing too, in the healthcare field, they expect you to be with your people, and I say that as in, well, like, I'm blind, so they expect me to work in a blindness rehab place, which I might do. I'm kind of on the fence about that kind of stuff, but they don't expect me to be in a general rehabilitation place. Like, I want to work in a rehab hospital that does spinal cord injuries and amputations and stuff like that. And people that I've talked to, they're always like, oh, you don't want to work in blindness? And I'm like, no, like, I don't. And they're shocked because, you know, like, well, you're blind, so you could. And I'm like, yes, I could, but there's more to me than just blindness. Like, I have other skills. And that probably was a long rant. I apologize, but definitely be certain to, you know, if you want to work in blindness, like, there's nothing wrong with that at all. I'm just saying, don't let other people try to push you into that, because that happens a lot. A lot of my blind friends end up working at blindness places, which is totally fine. But some of them were pushed into that because they felt like that was the only thing they could do, is work with blind people. And that really bothers me, because I'm like, no, you can work in other places. So yeah, so if you're totally blind, you're out there, you're considering working in the healthcare field, you know, definitely consider your options. And there's nothing wrong with working in the blindness field at all. It's just people are going to push you more towards that because they see you as blind, so you can only work with blind people. Again, that's where the low expectations and not a lot of people in the healthcare field comes in. But yeah, so I'm trying to think of any other skills or things that I've learned. I'm also going to demonstrate some skills later too that I'm going to do in another video. So for me, you know, like, I had to walk around a little bit, kind of get acquainted with the buildings that I'm in. I never fully learned actually a couple of the buildings because they're strangely laid out, and like, we're always in a different floor or different area of the building, so I'm like, there's no point in learning this whole building just for, you know, we're only there like 2 days a week for maybe 2 hours. I'm like, there's no point in learning this for 2 hours. And if I was employed there, it'd be different, but I'm not, so, you know. But yeah, try to learn it, like, take some time to just kind of calm down, learn the building a little bit. At least know where the gloves are. The gloves, the hand sanitizer. Right now it's COVID season, so, well, it will be for a long time. So we had to wear masks, and we don't have to wear gowns. Ooh, that's another thing too, as a blind person. As I said, I'm racially awkward, but whenever you touch things through rubber gloves, you can't always feel them very well. So, like, for example, I was trying to help someone get dressed, and I was really struggling because I couldn't feel the fabric, and I was like, this is weird. Okay. So definitely try to practice. Like, if you can buy rubber gloves somewhere, which you can't really do now because COVID, but if you do after COVID, and you want to go in the healthcare field, definitely practice wearing rubber gloves and just do everything around your house, like just clean or do something that requires touch, just so you can kind of strengthen your tactile senses, so you kind of know what you're feeling, even if it's through rubber gloves. Because I was like, this is gonna be fun, and I did figure it out, but I was like, I kept apologizing to the patient. I was like, I'm sorry, I literally can't feel anything right now, so, this is gonna be a struggle, but we made it. As far as, like, medical devices, like, I haven't had to work with someone who's on a ventilator yet, but be prepared to just go with the flow of things. Things change all the time in healthcare, and be ready to learn, to touch things, to talk to people, you have to be comfortable around people and make them comfortable around you, even if that's like, I use a lot of humor, so I always just like going casually. I'm like, hey, I'm blind, you know, and I was like I'll say something and I'll be like, yeah, if you're blind, you can't do this very well. And you know, normally I get people to laugh and get people to kind of see me as a person and not just a blind person first. And that helps them a lot, kind of calm down and trust me more. Which, you know, then it's easier because then you can be like, hey, did I miss, like when you shave someone's, like, you're shaving the legs or something, you can be like, hey, did I miss that hair right there? Oops, sorry. Like, you know, because you use rubber gloves and you're like, I can't feel the hair. But, you know, it's a lot easier to talk to people when you're more comfortable with your blindness. Or, I guess any disability, really. I did meet some other people with disabilities, and there's like a group called, disabled OTs, I want to say, on Facebook. Or disability OT, something like that. I'll have to look up the name. And I don't know how to link it, otherwise I totally would. But basically, it's a group of, just what it sounds like, disabled OTs, and we work on, well, we just talk about stuff, and we're like, hey, how do you handle this situation? Because, you know, in the general populations of OT groups, like, a lot of them see us as clients and not therapists, not fellow healthcare workers. So it's a good group to kind of just be like, hey, how do I do this? So far I've talked to people with wheelchairs, with spinal cord injuries, you know, paralysis, varying disabilities, and it's really nice to talk to people who, even though they don't have the same disability as me, like, we're still feeding off each other, supporting each other, kind of helping each other figure stuff out. So yeah, long video, I apologize. And I apologize for my camera, my hands are doing their own thing here. But yeah, so I just want to kind of go in here and just say, if you are looking into this field, leave a comment, or that's about all you can do. I was gonna say you can message me on YouTube, but that's not a thing anymore. But yeah, like, totally comment, like, share, do whatever you have to do. I don't really care, because it's out here, so you're welcome to it. But, I mean, whatever disability you have, like, it is possible. It just, if you're the only person with your disability doing it, it really sucks. Sorry, Beacon just ran past me. But, you know, you can work on it. You can figure out ways to get around stuff. It may not be easy, and you're definitely gonna have people say, oh, you can't do that, but you just have to be like, whatever. You know, you don't have to care. You don't have to worry about what they think, because it's you, and it's not their life. So yeah, I mean, I can't give you any advice as far as finding jobs, because I'm not there yet. But hopefully I will be. But yeah, so anyway, if you've enjoyed this video, please feel free to like or subscribe, or I guess, can you like heart stuff? I don't even know. Whatever you can do. I don't know if you can do emojis on YouTube, but if you can, feel free. But yeah, so that's my video, and hope y'all enjoy. And soon I will be posting some more videos because I've been at home with, well, my field work. But I will be posting more videos about how to deal with a dog, or how to, I don't have all the equipment that I need to show you, but I can show you some stuff, like some tissue work and stuff like that I can demonstrate on my friends who are cool with being in a video. But in the meantime, if I don't make another video before January, I will be moving soon, at the end of December/January, and I will be moving to an apartment, so I'll be kind of cramming stuff down, and probably won't make a video before then, but if I do, then yeah. I'll be moving and graduating next week, and so I'm having a little kind of celebration kind of thing. So if I don't make another video before then, this will be my last video for 2020, which, yay, 2020 is gonna be over, yay. And if you want to ask me anything, like, I'm chill. That's why I made a YouTube channel, to kind of force myself to get out there into the world and talk to people. Well, talk about myself to other people, I guess. So, like, if you have any comments, criticisms, whatever, I don't get offended easily. So, whatever you want to say, just comment, share, whatever. So yeah, so thank y'all for watching, and if I don't make another video before January, have a good Merry Christmas and a good end of 2020, and hopefully you are staying safe. And if the COVID has affected you guys, like, I've been there too, I understand. I've lost some people with it, and you know, so I do feel your pain, and I empathize with you. So you know, if you have been impacted yourself, hopefully you are getting better. Hopefully it wasn't super severe, but if it was, and you're watching this, I'm glad you're getting better. And you know, if you're watching this when you're recovering, like, at least you're doing something productive. So yeah, so again, thank y'all for watching, and have a good Merry Christmas if I don't talk to you before then. And also, whatever holiday you celebrate, if it's Hanukkah, I don't know when Hanukkah is, but happy Hanukkah. And whatever holiday you celebrate, just stay safe and be careful. Thank you all.